So this is Japan's biggest heist ever, the 300 million yen robbery explained by ANIKI. Not Gachimuchi ANIKI. Let me put Japanese subtitles.
$300 million yen in 1968. Yeah. At the time, it was an incredible sum of money, worth over 1.2 billion yen, or roughly $7.5 million today.
That's crazy.
On a quiet December morning in Fuchu, Tokyo, every single yen of it disappeared. In a matter of just 3 minutes. No alarms were triggered, not a single shot was fired, nobody was hurt. Just one single man posing as a police officer who ended up driving off with the largest amount of money ever stolen in Japan.
Simple.
What followed was one of the most intense investigations in Japanese criminal history. More than 100,000 suspects, millions of tips, and one nation watching, day after day.
Did they not catch him? That's the biggest question, right? Did they not manage to catch him?
Even more than half a century later, one question still hangs in the air. How did someone pull off the biggest heist Japan has ever seen and seemingly get away with it?
So he did. I guess it's like D.B. Cooper, right?
This is the story of the 300 million yen robbery.
Let's learn. Fuchu, Tokyo.
It is a cold Tuesday morning in Fuchu, a city on the western edge of the Tokyo metropolitan area. It is a place perhaps best known for the Tokyo race course, large industrial facilities belonging to some of Japan's biggest electronics manufacturers, and very shortly, the scene of the largest heist in Japanese history. One of those aforementioned electronics giants was Tokyo Shibaura Electric, better known today as Toshiba. At the time, Toshiba employed roughly 4,500 people at its Fuchu plant. And of course, those employees needed to be paid. That responsibility fell to a branch of Nippon Trust Bank located in nearby Kokubunchi City, just a few kilometers north of the factory. And on the morning of December 10th, 1968, everything about that regularly scheduled delivery looked completely ordinary. 4 bank employees would load Toshiba's payroll into a custom Nissan Cedric, drive through the quiet streets of Tokyo in broad daylight for about 10 to 15 minutes, deliver the cash, and be done with it. It was routine in the purest sense of the word.
But is it because, like, if I'm ever in possession of that much money, nothing is routine. Like the one time I had like 500 euro in cash in my pocket, right? I felt, like everybody was gonna attack me. So I feel like in this kind of job where you're always transporting this amount of money, yeah, I'd literally be like always ready for someone to attack.
But on this particular morning, that routine was about to be utterly shattered. At exactly 9:15 a.m., the cash transport vehicle departed the Nippon Trust Bank branch in Kokubunchi. Inside the vehicle were the 4 bank employees, along with the bonuses for Toshiba's workforce, a staggering 294,307,500 yen in cash, packed neatly into 3 relevant cases. The vehicle passed beneath the railway tracks of the JNR 20 line, continued south along Kokubunchi Kaido Road, turned right at an intersection, and entered Gakuen Dori, a road running directly behind Fuchu Prison. At this point, the vehicle and the money were now roughly 3/4 of the way to their destination, with the Toshiba factory less than a kilometer away. Just a few minutes, the cash would be handed over, the paperwork completed, and the delivery written off as another uneventful success. Just another day at work, except that someone had other plans. About halfway down Gakuen Dori, the transport vehicle was suddenly overtaken by a white motorcycle, one that appeared to belong to a police officer.
Okay.
The man on the bike then raised his left hand, signaling the car to
That's the
pull over.
reproduction, I guess.
The driver of the transport vehicle was a bit confused. He wasn't speeding. Nothing seemed out of place. Still, as an upstanding citizen, he complied. As the officer approached, the driver rolled down the window and asked what the problem was. The reply was immediate and chilling.
This is Kogane Police Station. We received an emergency call from Sugamo Police Station. Residents of your bank's Sugamo branch manager has been bombed.
Oh.
We've also been informed that dynamite has
That's
been
how they're
planted
doing it.
in this car. So please check the inside of the car.
The 4 employees, they were stunned. They insisted that the vehicle had been thoroughly inspected just the day prior. But still, they searched the interior again. Nothing. Then the officer spoke up once more.
It might be under the car.
Without hesitation, the employees exited the vehicle.
They get out, he gets in, that's it.
As they watched, the officer opened the hood and began inspecting the engine compartment. And in that very moment, something clicked. Just 4 days earlier, a threatening letter had been sent to the Sugamo branch manager's home, and employees had been warned to remain alert for suspicious activity. Was it possible there really was an actual bomb? Were their lives in danger? Just as that very thought crossed their minds, the officer crawled underneath the car, and suddenly white smoke and flames burst out from underneath it. The reaction was instant. The 4 employees ran, putting nearly 100 meters between themselves and the vehicle, ducking behind buildings and hedges, and bracing for an explosion that could come at any second. But that explosion, it never came. Instead, they watched in disbelief as the officer jumped back into the driver's seat, turned the key, still left the ignition in the chaos, and sped off toward Fuchu Kaido Road, where at an intersection, he blasted through a red light, narrowly missed a collision with a dump truck, and disappeared. And that was the last time anyone...
That's it. That's it. I really thought it would be like a little bit more complicated, but damn, that's so simple. I mean, that is so simple. It's amazing. Yeah.
ever saw the mysterious police officer, and of course, the money.
It's no
In a
mission
matter
impossible.
of just 3 minutes, the 4 Nippon Trust Bank employees have been relieved of 300 million yen. No violence, no injuries, no gunshots, and of course, no explosion. The
Yeah.
cash was simply gone. Just like that, the largest and perhaps the most mundane heist.
Obviously, the biggest thing I could say, like, is that it's kind of crazy they were transporting it in just a car, right? I mean, I don't know if they were already a thing at the time, but you know, today, like, any amount of cash would be transported in this kind of like armored trucks, you know, like pretty crazy stuff. You know, and I'm sure there's like much more procedure of like maybe the drivers don't get out or something. I mean, I guess you have to get out for the cops. I don't know if you could do the same thing with like an armored truck, right? But also like with an armored truck, if someone steals it, like it's pretty obvious, right? But with a car like this, it seems so, like in hindsight, right? It seems so obvious that this is easy to steal, and you know, this is probably like not that rare of a model of car. Yeah.
In Japanese history had just taken place. Here's the thing though, at that moment, the 4 bank employees, they didn't even realize they'd just been robbed. They believed the officer had heroically driven the vehicle to safety.
What a hero.
In their minds, he had just saved their lives. A brave policeman,
The cop looks kind of familiar.
risking everything to prevent what could have been a deadly explosion. But that belief didn't last very long, because after several minutes had passed, something just fell off. The supposed explosive device still hadn't detonated, and when they finally gathered the courage to approach the vehicle's last known position, the truth revealed itself. There was no bomb. There was no dynamite.
It's a flare.
Just a flare. One single, innocent, harmless little flare. It was smoke without a bang. After that discovery, they then turned their attention to that white motorcycle that the officer had left behind. What it looked like a legitimate police vehicle in the heat of the moment, was nothing more than a normal motorcycle,
It's not.
crudely painted white to appear official. And in that moment, reality slowly started to set in. They hadn't been saved, they had been played. Because that brave police...
Yeah, I'm not crazy. I was pretty sure this is Kitano. It is Kitano. Yeah, okay.
Police officer, he wasn't a hero at all. He was a thief. So, what do you do when you get robbed? Well, you call the police. But remember, this was 1968. No cell phones, no
yeah.
instant communication. Luckily for the shaken bank employees though,
Is there no, like, in 68, was there no phone booth? Was that not a thing yet? I have no idea.
Puchu prison literally stood right next to the crime scene. So, roughly 10 minutes after the thief had vanished from the scene, they shouted to a nearby prison guard, asking him to call the police. They then rushed to a nearby gas station to contact their employer and explain what had just happened, which must have been one of the most awkward calls into work in the history of mankind. But Nippon Trust Bank then immediately contacted the authorities themselves. Police forces were mobilized across Tokyo, checkpoints were established at key locations.
I can't even imagine as an employee, right? I mean, technically, you know, it's like, how those guys don't really get blamed, right? I mean, is it really fully their fault? I don't know. But, you know, when you're an employee and, like, you break something, you get pretty scared of the consequences, right? I remember, like, when I was working at, like, the plant to process lavender, basically. One time the boss and the other employee had to go do something outside of the place I was in, and so I was basically left alone, and I had only been working there for like a month. And part of the process was to take those bags, fill them with lavender that was processed, and then use one of those like handgun sewing machine to like sew the bag. Except I'd done it perfectly since I was there, you know. And the moment that they weren't there, I kind of fucked it up, and I don't remember what I did, but like I kind of untangled the thing and really messed it up. And you know, I was terrified that like I broke this thing, which probably cost like a few thousands, right? Eventually, the other employee, when he came back, he was able to fix it. It took a bit, but you know, like I can't imagine, like, you know, for me it was like a few thousands, right? Imagine you lost $7 million for your employers. I mean, yeah, I feel like I would just die of an heart attack.
Throughout the entire city, and by 9:50 a.m., the manhunt for the thief behind Japan's biggest ever heist was officially underway. As officers arrived at the scene and began their initial investigation, there was actually a strong sense of optimism. And it's easy to see why, because whoever the culprit was, he had left behind an astonishing amount of evidence. Investigators recovered a total of 124 individual pieces of evidence spread across 4 different locations deemed relevant to the crime.
Okay.
Crime scene number 1, the location of the robbery itself, yielded the fake police motorcycle, a transistor megaphone, newspaper fragments stuck to the megaphone's freshly applied white paint, a hat, and the burnt remains of the flare.
This all seems like a lot. I mean, 100 pieces of evidence. Was that the point or something? Was the guy literally trying to leave a lot of evidence to throw them off so like he puts in a bunch of like stuff that doesn't matter?
Used to simulate the bomb. Crime scene number 2 was the entrance to a nearby cemetery. This is where the cash transport vehicle was later discovered abandoned, with both the money and the duralumin cases both gone. A local resident also reported seeing a dark blue Toyota Corolla parked there on the morning of the crime, which was widely believed to be the actual getaway vehicle. Crucially, police were still searching for a stolen Nissan Cedric during the early stages of the investigation, not a dark blue Corolla.
Of course.
A delay that likely played a major role in the culprit's successful escape. Crime scene number 3 was a vacant lot near Meisei High School. According to a housewife's testimony, this is where the fake police motorcycle had been parked before the heist. Investigators found a raincoat believed to belong to the thief, as well as a green Toyota Corolla, thought to have been used to tail a cash transport vehicle and learn its route. The car had been reported stolen less than 2 weeks earlier. The fourth and final crime scene was discovered months later on April 9th in the parking lot of a housing complex in Honmachi, Kogane City. There, police located the dark blue Corolla believed to have been used to flee the cemetery. Sure enough, inside the vehicle were the 3 duralumin cases that held the money, now almost completely empty. The only thing left inside was 1.5 grams of soil, which was...
Damn, so you really planned it, I mean. So, 1 car to tell, then a motorcycle, then switch to the car that you steal, then go into a blue car, and then probably another car. That's really like a big trail, but really good for, like, you know, not getting followed that easy at the same time.
Later found to match the soil from a wooded area roughly 4 kilometers away, as well as the soil from the cemetery at crime scene number 2. At crime scene number 4, police also discovered 4 additional stolen vehicles, which were likely connected to the crime. A Honda Dream motorcycle, a Prince Skyline 2000 GT, a Nissan Bluebird, and a Prince Skyline 1500, the last of which contained a pair of women's earrings. And so, putting all of this information together, investigators were able to reconstruct what most likely went down in the morning of December 10th. Sometime around 9 a.m., the thief likely followed the cash transport vehicle in a green Corolla. He then retrieved a fake police motorcycle parked near Meisei High School and headed toward the robbery site. Sometime around 9:20 a.m., he overtook the transport vehicle, stopped it, and stole it. From there, he followed the route towards Fuchu Kaido, eventually reaching the cemetery, where he abandoned the Nissan Cedric and transferred the money into the dark blue Corolla. He then drove to Honmachi, removed the cash from the cases, abandoned the vehicle, and vanished. Anything beyond that point remains a mystery.
Probably switch vehicle again.
On paper, this looked like a remarkably solid case. Yet, the evidence didn't stop there either. Because on December 6th, 4 days before the robbery, the Kokubunshi branch of Nippon Trust Bank received a blackmail letter. This letter demanded...
But again, like, you might say this is a lot of evidence, but you know, is it? Like, they understand the sequence of the crime, but again, they don't know what the guy is like. I mean, it depends what the employee said, right? They're not sure what it looks like. And despite all the sequence, they don't know what other vehicle is in now. And I mean, at this point, after all this time, it's probably, you know, if you're smart, has fled the country.
3 million yen be delivered to a specified location the following day, on December 7th, or else the branch manager's home would be blown up. Police dispatched a female officer disguised as a bank employee, but no one ever appeared to collect the money. Still, this letter proved rather valuable, because saliva on the postage stamp revealed the sender's blood type as B, and the newspaper clippings used to assemble the letter, they were a perfect match for the newspaper used to wrap the flares, which were used during the robbery. And then of course, we got that infamous photo montage. Released 11 days after the crime, this composite image of the suspect quickly became somewhat iconic. The 4 bank employees confirmed that it closely resembled the fake police officer who had robbed them, and over the following years, this image would become pretty much...
He looks like a guy, I mean, it's like, I don't know if he has like especially standard features kind of thing, you know? So it's like, yeah, I don't know. Would you really recognize him? Especially because, again, like, if I was him, I would like grow a beard or something.
Much burned into the collective memory of the Japanese public. There were many more small pieces of evidence tied to the case. Honestly, too many to list here, but I think you get the point. By all accounts, this should have been more than enough to put someone behind bars.
But
yet, that never happened. The investigation continued for 7 years as the entire country became familiar with the case through relentless television, radio, and newspaper coverage, nationwide distribution of the photo montage, and of course, good old word of mouth. Because honestly, how could people not talk about a robbery of 300 million yen in broad daylight, pulled off without any sort of violence in just 3 minutes in 1968?
Right.
Of course it was the talk of the town.
Frankly, the most logical thing is that, again, looking at the level of planning for like all the cars and vehicles and all that, I'm guessing after like the last one that he switched to another car, and then I'm guessing if he was smart, he had planned in advance for like a way to leave the country, right? Maybe a boat, or I don't know if he would take a plane, but yeah, he had probably planned that as well. And then again, the smartest thing is to go to like some, country where like, this amount of money is pretty insane, and just live there, or like maybe go to a country that doesn't have like extradition or something. Yeah.
Over time, the list of persons of interest ballooned to more than 110,000 different names. A frankly absurd number that underscores not only the scale of the crime, but the sheer size of the investigation itself. Still, no.
I feel like they probably, like, the amount of cop that they must have had to do all this, they probably spent a lot more money on the case than the money that they would get back,
Arrests were ever made. On December the 10th, 1975, the statute of limitations then finally expired. And 10 years later, on December 10th, 1988, the right to reclaim the stolen money also lapsed. Whoever the culprits, or the culprits were, and wherever they ended up, they were now effectively free. But at the same time, it's not like there was a shortage of suspects. 3 of the most prominent individuals were all connected to a local youth delinquent group, known as the Tachikawa Group, named after the nearby city of Tachikawa. The most heavily scrutinized among these 3 was a 19-year-old known only as Shonen S, or Teen S. A local familiar with the area, skilled with cars and motorcycles, previously arrested for vehicle theft, and closely linked to another gang that had committed a robbery using fake dynamite made from flares just 9 months earlier. And get this, Teen S's father was a motorcycle police officer. Despite all this circumstantial evidence, searches of his home turned up none of the stolen money though, and his blood type didn't match that of the blackmail letter sender. Somewhat tragically, on December 15th, just 5 days after the heist, Teen S died from potassium cyanide poisoning following a violent argument with his father.
Whoa.
Officially ruled as a self-inflicted act, the case fueled intense public speculation about the father's potential involvement.
Well, that's
and
sad.
the photo montage, by the way, was said to strongly resemble Teen S. Yet, police ultimately concluded that he was likely innocent. Regardless, in the public imagination, Teen S remains as one of the prime suspects. The second suspect was Gay Boy. No, I did not choose that name. That's literally what they called him. He was also referred to simply as K though, so maybe let's go with that instead. K was 26 years old, romantically involved with Teen S, and suspected of acting as some sort of accomplice during the heist.
He was a gay boy.
K claimed that Teen S had stayed at his Shinjuku apartment for several days before the robbery, and left around 8 AM on the morning of the crime, a timeline that could align with the events in Fuchu. Police eventually cleared K, but questions lingered. A year after the robbery, he left Japan, opened a gay bar overseas, later returned, bought 2 apartments, and in 1975, just as the statute of limitations expired, built a mansion on his parents' land. According to Kay, the money came from a wealthy foreign patron. Hard proof of...
I mean, it is kind of sus, yeah. That's a lot, but I don't know.
Wrongdoing? Not really. Suspicious? Absolutely. The third Tachikawa Group connected suspect was Teen Z, just 18 years old at the time. Like Teen S, he knew the area well and was a capable driver. He also came from a poor background, yet shortly after the robbery, he opened a coffee shop, started a real estate company, purchased luxury properties, traveled to Hawaii, and reportedly spent close to 100 million yen.
Well, that's also sus, but yeah, I mean, it can't be all of them, right? And at the same time, it's like, again, if they were the one that did it, I mean, would they be that stupid? You know, like spending that much obvious money that you don't have or something. I don't know.
When questioned shortly before the statute of limitations expired, his explanation for the money was reportedly riddled with inconsistencies, and he allegedly reacted by slamming his head against the interrogation desk. These three remain the most prominent suspects known to the public. Hundreds, thousands even, were proposed, but mostly quickly ruled out. One of the most tragic cases was that of a man known as Suspect F, a local driver who resembled the perpetrator and fit parts of the profile. While the police treated him cautiously and acknowledged his alibi, the media, particularly...
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a classic. How many cases like this in the world has happened, right? Like someone who happens to look like some suspect and they get their life ruined over that. It's unfortunately very common. Sometimes it's not even like just you look like, literally having the same name, and some people will ruin your life over it.
The Mainichi Shimbun did not. His face was superimposed onto the montage, his full actual name published, and his life effectively ruined. He lost jobs, his family fell apart, and he spent the rest of his life burdened by suspicion.
That's
and
so
then there were the imposters. People who really wanted to be the mastermind behind the heists.
Of course.
Self-proclaimed culprits came forward for years, decades even, all of whom were, however, quickly exposed, because one simple test gave them all away. The culprit used a highly specific, unusual method to ignite the flare. This method was kept a secret by law enforcement, and so only the real thief would know how he did it. So far, no one familiar with this method has ever come forward.
I mean, why would they? Seriously.
And so, the 300 million yen robbery remains, and will likely always remain, unsolved. It was a near-perfect crime. No direct victims, no violence, executed with speed, precision, and audacity. A heist that...
You could say like a victimless crime, right? But then it's like, did the regular employees get paid? You know? And then obviously like, you can't say it's really the fault of the robber, right? The media is, you know, terrible as always, but yeah, that's messed up.
It left a city's police force and an entire nation stunned and utterly fascinated. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this...
Okay, well, that's a great video. Very interesting. Like, when we started, I really thought this was going to be much more complicated. I guess I've watched too many heist movie stuff, you know. But it is crazy how simple that was, right? I mean, sometimes it makes sense, right? People often say that, you know, the best time to commit crime was like around this time, you know, up to maybe like the 70s, 80s. You know, but then when like technology started being much more of a thing, you know, like cameras, DNA, and all that, you know, a lot more in the 70s, 80s, is where like, you know, this kind of thing are much harder to really pull off. And yeah, again, like the fact that it was so simple. I mean, I was talking about D.B. Cooper, but D.B. Cooper was like crazier, right? I mean, you know, hijacking a plane and jumping out of the plane and disappearing and all that. This one was so much more straightforward and almost like amateurish, right? I mean, all he did was paint a bike white to make it look like a cop bike, you know. This could have all gone wrong so easily. And from what I heard, I would say that probably like so much evidence wasn't because he was trying to confuse the investigation. No, it was genuinely like that much mistakes. And yet, yeah, I mean, because it's at that time, you know, you just can't use all this evidence that easily, you know. It's kind of amazing. I mean, you know, it's kind of shocking how simple it is, right? I mean, pull up and act like a cop for like 2 minutes, and yeah, it's kind of amazing. Obviously, again, like a lot could have gone wrong, right? Like if one of the 4 guys in the car was sus, they wouldn't have like left the car and stuff like that, right? But yeah, it all went perfectly for the guy. Very, very crazy story, but very interesting. Here's the link. And anyway, if anyone is watching, I mean, I don't think anyone is watching right now, no comments. Great video, very interesting case.